Hey, David.
Hey, Laura.
Another day, another episode of the Glennon Factor.
Oh, another episode. I love it when we get to have another episode.
Remember when we did our episode with the Child Life folks and they helped us make the title and it was called We Help Kids Do Hard Things?
That was so cool because we weren't going to call it that, but then they let us know that was kind of their motto for the team. And we're like, well, we have to call it that now.
For sure. And it's so appropriate because, no child expects to be in the hospital. It's hard. And it doesn't matter what area of the hospital they're in.
It's all hard.
It's all hard. And then, it got us thinking, right, that in current Glennon, we have 195 beds in the hospital, 86 of which are critical care beds.
That's almost half dedicated to critical care.
Correct. Almost half. So what that means is we have half almost of our population that it's already hard. And then we have the critical component and the intensive layer, upon that. So these are the families that their normal has been tossed to the side for a moment, and then they are being dealt very hard truths, very much uncertainty. We have barriers to communication, barriers to bonding, and all of that thrown into the mix. And that's just an incredibly difficult place to be.
And I'm so excited that we are going to share today one of those stories where in that balance of hope and heartbreak, the hope came through and it turned out to be a great and powerful story. We're going to have a teenager by the name of Brayden who very tragically was in an automobile accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. He does not remember hardly anything that happened throughout his journey with us. So his mom is going to join us, Elaine. She'll be filling in the gaps and giving her perspective of a mother going through the PICU with a child in intensive care.
Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to have Dr. Amber Grana, and she's an intensivist in our ICU and was one of Brayden's key physicians during his journey. And we're also going to have Mary Grace Dunham, who's a clinical support nurse and a longtime critical care nurse at the hospital. And, the part to me about this is, they're not going to be talking about the hands-on, the, emergency life-saving care, which is amazing.
It's absolutely
and
amazing.
Only possible, because we have so much support for the hospital. But we're really going to be talking about the feelings and that dance and that balance of what they all are doing collectively day by day, both the parents and the clinicians, and balancing those hard truths, those difficult conversations, but still finding that space for hope at the same time, because we don't know how things are going to go. And they're here today being very, very vulnerable.
For sure.
And sharing how they all did that in this case, and from the clinician perspective, how they do that with families day by day.
It's going to be tough, but I'm so excited to hear their story. Let's get in there.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our Glennon Factor podcast. We're going to start out with some introductions because David and I know who you are, but the rest of our
everybody
audience
else needs to learn who you are.
Yeah. So go ahead. We'll start with you.
All right. I'm Dr. Grana. I'm one of the ICU attendings here at Glennon, which I've been here for 5 years as an attending and then 6 years of training here at Glennon prior to that. So
That's
awesome.
We're glad we got to keep you.
We're very glad we got to keep her.
Awesome. Okay.
My name is Mary Grace. I've been at the PICU for 23 years at Cardinal Glennon, and I'm one of the core charge nurses here. So
that's a long time. You're a lifer.
I am a lifer.
Or we want you to be.
I keep saying one day when my body can't do this, I don't know what I would want to be when I grow up, because this is what I know and this is what I love.
You can come sit and hang out here with us.
That's the nice thing about Cardinal Glennon. You don't have to grow up.
Right.
Yeah, very true.
Well, I mean, we're around children. You don't want to be too serious.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. You too. You don't work for Glennon. You could, maybe.
I know. I almost feel like it.
Tell us your connection.
I'm Elaine Baer, and my son spent 42 days at Cardinal Glennon. Started February 15th of 2024.
I'm Brayden Baer. I'm the survivor of the accident. And yeah.
Okay, we are going to hear more about that. We're
A
going to
little
hear
more.
a lot more about that. But just to kind of set the stage, so you are an intensivist in our ICU, you are a nurse in our ICU, you spent time in the ICU. So help for our audience that are not medical people. I mean, ICU people have heard that term, but Mary Grace, set the stage for us about what that environment is. What types of patients do we see? Type of what type of kids do we care for? What's happening down there?
Well, we are an 18-room, 21-bed ICU. We have a vast variety of patients that we see. So alongside of like cardiothoracic surgery, neurosurgery, neurology, cardiac, your run-of-the-mill sepsis, and regular things, respiratory distress that people come into the ICU. We also get traumas, which is what he is. And for traumas, it could be a motor vehicle accident, a dirt bike accident, different things like that. Somebody riding their bike and falling and hitting in their head. So we see a little bit of everything in our ICU. Anything that would require a child to need help breathing or anything going on with their heart, or sometimes if they just need closer monitoring after surgery, we just see a whole variety of things.
Thank you for that. Thank you for setting the stage. So the four of you all met in the ICU, right? Back in what year did you say?
2024.
2024.
Mhm.
Okay. So Brayden, we are probably, I know your memory of
Yeah.
the accident and ICU time is very scant. We'll say it that way. So we're probably going to rely on your mom to do
Yeah,
story time.
I would too.
Okay. I like to just say, I don't want you to think we're like ignoring, like asking
yeah.
you to tell about the accident, but the reality is you don't remember a whole lot,
And we don't
which
want it
is
to feel like a
probably
pop
a good
quiz
thing,
either.
right?
Yeah.
But before we go there and hear about what happened, I'm kind of interested in who was Brayden before the accident. So tell me about yourself and what kind of human you were prior to the accident.
I was an athlete. I played basketball, football. I did swim team, but I quit that, I think, 3rd grade.
It's about 4th grade, so it was
Yeah.
a couple years before. You did
I
track and
was
baseball.
a good student. I got A's and B's, high honor roll. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
That's awesome.
And y'all can't, those of you who aren't watching us and just listening, you can't see, but Brayden is like 10,000 feet tall.
Clearly good at basketball.
Yeah,
He's got a
exactly.
good head over all of us.
Exactly.
Okay, so Elaine, we kind of alluded to this, but take us back to the day of the accident and kind of give us the story from your perspective about everything that happened during that day.
Sure. Yeah, the kids were they were leaving for school that morning, and it was a little after 7. My daughter Elise was driving. She was bringing a friend to school that morning as well, so her friend was in the front seat, and then Brayden was in the back seat of the vehicle behind the passenger, and they had pulled out of our subdivision, and as you pull out of our subdivision, you're pulling out onto 40, which is speed limit onto that is 55. He unfortunately was not buckled yet. He was in the back getting his stuff situated, and as before you have a situation arrives like this, you just know you got to be buckled up when you get out onto that main road. Well, it has obviously changed our perspective on, not worrying about having your seatbelt on in the neighborhood, that you're going 15 miles an hour through. It takes that one turn going onto that main road that, you got to have that buckle on. And so they were pulling out. There was a gentleman that was heading towards them, traveling at a really high speed, hit them on the driver's side. And I had received a call that, I needed to head down to the end of the subdivision, that the kids were in an accident.
Who gave you that call?
We actually we have a really good friend, family friend. Brayden's actually friends with his daughter, and they have an older son. So just a good friend of the family. My husband and I both went to school with them. But he got on the phone to calm me down. And, of course, I just kept asking, please tell me the kids are okay. And of course, he, just said, get down here. And he stayed on the phone with me until I pulled up, and I arrived at the scene, and I had my other daughter with me at the time. She was little, younger, still at home with me. Their school start time staggered, so she was still at home with me. So I woke her up, got down there, and they had already had 2 ambulances on the scene, several cop car, everything. And I saw Elise's car over in the ditch. They had her down in one ambulance and Brayden in the other. They had Addie and I, my other daughter, kept us outside of his ambulance. I know it was touch and go with him. So that was the hardest thing. It felt like forever standing outside of his ambulance, not being able to see him, and they closed the doors. And they said that they had the helicopter on the way to airlift him. Thank goodness I did get to see him when they took him out of the ambulance to take him over. It was hard. They had already got a tube in him, and I knew he was in good hands. We had an episode with my daughter in March of 23. She got viral and bacterial meningitis, and we had her, I don't know what made me say Cardinal Glennon in 23, but that when they asked in 23 where we wanted her to go, we immediately said Cardinal Glennon. And so then right away when they asked for Brayden, I said that we wanted to go to Cardinal Glennon again. And I just thank God every day that, those were the words that literally came out of my mouth both times, because I thank God every day for the staff there, and they're just unbelievable. You guys really are.
So you are outside the ambulance,
Mm-hmm.
outside the helicopter. Did anyone have dialogue with you at that point about how severe things were? Was it all about, at that point, just stabilizing him, getting on the helicopter?
I didn't really get any information about him. Just that I needed to stay outside of there, and that they promised me that I could see him before they, transported him. And then I got to go in, ride to Cardinal Glennon in Elise's ambulance. Thank you. As soon as they put him in. And even in there, nothing was said of Brayden. So I had, no idea of, what was going on, what his, what state his health was in or anything. I had no idea. But thank goodness Elise, she was unconscious at the scene as well. Thank goodness her friend was conscious the whole time. She was the one that called 911. And I had no idea of the severity of his condition until we got to Cardinal Glennon.
And so you get to Glennon, you're with both
Mm-hmm.
of your kids at that point. So when was the first moment that somebody engaged with you to kind of give you that update on how both your kids were doing?
I did get to go into the ER room with Elise. And so I sat with her until, it was a little while until I got to have any information on him, and when, they were ready for us to come up. It's a big deal when you got to go into a room and you're sitting at a conference table, and they start telling you everything and what's going on. It's a lot to comprehend. And unfortunately, my husband was out of town on a work trip. So I had called him in the ambulance on the way over. And I had also, my older son. But that was like the longest 5.5, 6 hour ride home for my husband. Thank goodness my 2 neighbors were there with me. They went. I asked if they could come in. I knew I just wasn't going to comprehend everything. And I had my 2 neighbors that they pretty much followed the ambulance. They came with us. They followed, so they were there the whole time with me. And I had them come into the room, when we sat and talked. And I had the one wrote everything down so that, I would have it in front of me to kind of read over and try to accept everything that they were telling me, which is really hard.
So was this conversation in the emergency room or in the ICU?
In the ICU.
In the ICU.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was going on with what they were doing with him.
What do you remember about those first words that they said?
When you hear brain trauma, and the pressure on the brain and everything. And, honestly, like, I just started subbing in her school district, and I love working in the special ed classroom. I love those kids, and I had never been exposed to anything like that until just a couple years ago. And I thought maybe God brought that into my life because that was going to be my new future. And, even with my daughter in 23, she had no vision. She had strokes. Like, she suffered a lot too. And I remember telling myself that. I had just started subbing, and I had remember kind of telling myself that in 23 when she had that. She is another miracle. And I just kept saying, well, maybe God put this new, because this is, and then nope, she proved everyone wrong. And, then this, and I'm like, well, maybe it is, what they're talking about really is going to be a different new lifestyle. But at the same time, I wasn't accepting it. Like, I just knew how hard of a worker Brayden is, and his faith. He's always had the strongest faith. His Bible is on his headboard, and it's been like that since he was little. His rosary, he's got a little orange Bible that he has taken. He got it at a little camp when he was a little guy. And that goes, it would go from,
third grade.
I think it was like third grade.
Hey,
He was
sometimes
in.
those are the best Bibles, the ones that you keep for years.
Yes, it's this tiny little orange Bible, and it was so gross. And it goes from every single sport bag. So if it's track season, if it was baseball season, football, basketball, it traveled. It went from one season to the next. And that was honestly the first thing I knew I had to get to the hospital. I don't even remember who it was, but I had them run into his bedroom, and I'm like, you've got to get his Bible. I need his orange Bible. I need his headboard Bible. I need his rosary. I got to have it all here.
Wow. That is, I'm not a medical person, and I can only imagine everything that happened during that situation. I'm so glad you all are sitting here with us today. But Dr. Grana, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very severe trauma case that has come through. We joke about it all the time. I'm not the medical person. I'm usually the only one in the room that isn't, but I've seen ER. I know some of that's sensationalized probably, but can you kind of, in layman's terms, explain to the audience when a trauma of this magnitude comes in from the emergency department, needs to get stabilized, come into the intensive care unit, what does that typically look like?
So our primary goal when we get patients with traumas is to get access and get them stabilized, get their blood pressure stabilized. Are they bleeding? Do they need blood? Do we need to support their blood pressure? For his situation, it was an isolated head trauma. And so we needed to make sure, like, what can we do to protect the brain moving forward? So get all of our subspecialty teams involved. Does he need pressure monitoring, which she ended up getting? And do we need more imaging? And how can we best help him to have the best outcome? But those first few minutes are get access, get all the procedures done that we need to, and then start working on those protective measures.
So it's understanding and trying to stabilize the situation. So it sounds like communication is key. How do you figure out the priority of relaying what you know in that moment to the family to give them, an update as to the situation?
And usually that's a little tricky for us because our priority is to stabilize him. So when Brayden came in, I was the attending on that admitted him. And so I was in the room doing all the procedures, trying to get lines in and make sure and help with sedation while he got the pressure monitor. And so in those situations, you have to rely on your colleagues to keep updating the family as say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where we're at. You can come and see him at this point, and hope that you have, your other people in the unit that can help communicate until you're able to. And then when you get a moment to tell the family, like, this is what we've done, this is what we still need to do. And really, you don't have an idea of like how things are going to go and what it's going to be like in the future. Really, in that first few hours, you're really just trying to, prioritize stabilization for him.
So, Mary Grace, are you one of those people? Are you one of the colleagues
Yes.
that gets the glory of being that person to just say, okay, I can see you right now. Okay, Mary Grace, you go handle it. Like,
Well, yeah, it's, I know that the parents are waiting. You're waiting, We get paged down to trauma majors to the ER. So the ICU charge nurse and attending, we go to those calls. So when he came in, we went down. And then the goal is for them to be in CT within 5 minutes of showing up. So finding all their injuries and going. So then usually from CT, they're up to the ICU. So door to the ICU is a very short window of time.
Wow.
And then we get them up, and like Dr. Grana said, is we try to get lines, try to get them stabilized. It takes a while, especially if there's a lot of things going on. They need to get a lot of different lines. They need to get different medicines. And our families are just waiting there. Yeah. Sometimes it's maybe been 2 to 3 hours because, drive time and then getting them stabilized. Some kids have to go to the OR. So usually as a charge nurse, I'm like, hey, do we have an update for the family? Has anybody talked to them, or can I go update them and where we are and what do we still have to do, just so that they have an idea? Because in those moments, those minutes feel like hours, and hours feel like an eternity for our families. So just trying to talk to them and give them any updates that we can.
So tell us how bad it was.
Yeah, he had his brain injury, but along with that, he gets intubated, right, for his airway protection. And while we're treating his brain injury, there's risk for infection. He developed a very bad pneumonia, which then progressed. So then now not only are we worried about what his brain is going, like healing wise, are his lungs going to make it through? There were talks of whether or not he needed to go on ECMO at one point for his lungs, which ECMO in the setting of a brain injury is also very scary and not always a great option. So he had moments where, despite the brain injury, he was getting sick from other things that, threatened his life and, complicated his recovery. So there were lots of ups and downs with his entire course. It was not a straightforward here. He has a brain injury. Let's treat the brain injury, because there were multiple complications with that.
I mean, it just sounds like anybody who comes into the PICU they're some of the most vulnerable patients. Mm-hmm. And so you can't take anything for granted, and more things can happen and unfortunately go wrong. I know there's a lot that's always going on in the PICU, and it seems like it's probably a diverse set of where patients are in their care journey and what they're even in there for. How does that impact any one of you, like having spent time in the PICU for so long, balancing between this patient might be having a celebration type of a day because their recovery is going strongly, but next door, there could be another patient who has taken a turn for the not so great. Tell us kind of what that's like.
From a provider perspective, really, there are many days where one patient just, let's say, had cardiac arrest and passed. And then you have to go from that situation to the next where, oh, this patient's now, they're getting extubated and they're improving. And really you have to take each patient and their families with what space that they're in that moment, because you have one terrible event, but you can't let that take over and cross over into how you're caring for the other children in the unit. So I think part of our training is compartmentalizing and separating out, like, this is what we're dealing with here, and then this is what we're dealing with there, and learning how to navigate that every day. Every day it's like that.
Do you have families, though? And I'm not going to say that the family's wrong, because I am one, and I understand how unrealistic sometimes and how much control we need to exercise. Like, I get it. But do you have families that you know how bad a situation is, but they can't go there and they are unrealistically, I don't want to say unrealistically positive, but like, how do you manage that when, because you need them there to be present, but they are not, maybe the word's not accepting, but not accepting where things are truly at. How, both of you, I'd love you to address that. Like, how do you do that? Like, really, because you have to make space for that.
Right.
But how do you do that? And also, I mean, I get it. You've been doing this a while, both y'all. So you just figure it out.
Right.
But like, how do you do that? Like,
well, when I'm in charge, one of my jobs is to go around and visit all the parents and the patients and every day, let them know I'm in charge. So if they needed something and their nurse is busy. But a lot of the times what I do is I'll go in and I'll sit down and talk to them and just see how they're doing, make sure that they have a clear understanding of what's happening and talk to them. I think a lot of it is built on building a relationship with somebody and actually getting and sitting down with them at a level so that like they see you. I always tell everybody, our parents are under stress. I mean, a lot of our parents have a lot of stress after they get out just because they witness everything. The children don't. A lot of the times they are medicated and sedated the whole time they're there. The parents are there. So you kind of have to sit down.
You wish you were sedated, Elaine. I mean,
I know, they didn't give me anything.
I know. We've had a lot of parents say, can you just give us a mister? Can you just put a mister in the room? It would be nice if we could just go to sleep.
Okay. Yeah.
I said, I wish, but I don't have that magic. But you really have to sit down and talk to them and get to a level and see what their real understanding is. I mean, you should never give up hope. And that's what I say. And I tell the families, especially like if they're mad because the doctor, like if Dr. Grana just went in and told them what is going on with their child and what they think is happening. Sometimes they get mad.
You the bad guy.
We are the bad
Yes.
guys.
But like I tell them, I said, knowledge is power. They have to tell you what is actually happening with your child.
Yeah.
Our doctors want to be proven wrong 100% of the time if they're giving you bad news. But if they don't give you that information and let you start processing it, then we don't want you to be blindsided.
Right.
So you really just have to build those relationships and sit there. And sometimes it's a whole day affair with getting them to understand anything. You go in, you talk a little bit, you let them process, you have them go and take a shower. And I tell everybody, like, you have to take care of you as a parent. And sometimes
that is the hardest thing to do.
It is. But like, they're going to get sick and they're going to wear down. And sometimes I'm like, let me get you some good bath stuff. Why don't you go take a shower, relax, think about things, and then we'll talk later.
We love when you come shop for bath stuff.
I come on, I'm shopping today too.
Here's Mary Grace again. She's shopping. I love it. Okay, so clearly looking at Brayden now, we got from a point where we are grave, super sick, maybe on ECMO, whatever, to a point where we left the hospital to go somewhere else. So between the two of you, Elaine, Dr. Grana, get us to that point where it's like, oh, there might be something here. Like,
I had a moment before they left.
Okay, but we're like stable and we're thinking of we're either going to go home, somewhere else. We got to a point where we're not as critical. So get us there.
Well, I want to start with saying I think his basketball team brought him a basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point,
that,
he wasn't speaking, he wasn't doing much, but like he was holding that ball. And that was more that we had seen him do in a long time.
Wow.
And Brayden would follow us. So a lot of children, when they have a traumatic head trauma, brain injury, they'll sit there, they don't follow you, they don't track. He would follow us. Whenever we came in the room, he would watch us and he would be staring to make sure we weren't going to do something that he didn't want to do.
He'd follow the cute nurses around. He'd say, oh,
Okay,
cute.
don't blow my cover.
But I think the other day was we had moved their room because you were in one room the whole time and we had moved the room. And I was walking down to do something and his mom's like, he just asked me for a chip. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, he just spoke and asked me for a chip.
Wait, what kind of chip?
Yeah, what kind of
I
chips
don't
were you
even
eating?
remember, but
Was
I
it
was sitting
Lay's?
there eating chips and I just hear, chip. And I was like, what?
And then he did it again for us, but like he had said chip. And I remember that day.
I bet you have unlimited chips now.
Hopefully.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Yeah, when I couldn't talk, I would think I would be talking, but in reality, I was just talking to my head.
He could hear. He
Like,
talks about that. He's like, I could hear.
it was so weird.
Like I could hear a conversation going on in my head,
Like
but like
things
he
you
just
want to
didn't.
say,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah,
Or
but
you
like-
think you're
couldn't.
saying, but you're not.
Yeah, exactly. It's so weird.
Okay, so I don't know exactly how it all works. Like when we like have these transitions, I'm going to say, and then it's like, oh, okay, like we're doing better. We see that there's possibility because of certain responses or things like that. So at some point there was discussion, I'm sure, a family conference, of this, of that, of like, okay, we are going to be at a point where we're no longer ICU. So what are we doing from here? So Dr. Grana, talk about that and like the planning of we will leave ICU and then the what?
So when, families decide, like he got a tracheostomy because he was unable to breathe on his own. So when we decide to move forward with some of those steps to help support, his recovery, we consult our rehab facility, which is Rankin. And so we get them involved pretty early where they start reviewing the chart, start looking at him even before he's out of the ICU.
Sure.
They come and talk to the family. Families, I think, usually get a tour of the facility and decide, is this where we're going to go from here? And they help us get him transitioned and ready for discharge to their facility. So in his case, Rankin had been consulted and they had been working towards the transition to rehab. So we start that pretty early in the process so that they know him, they can review his chart, they can see what we're doing, and then when he's ready, they're ready for him.
I mean, I just remember when they came in and said that they were going to have Rankin evaluate him, and I was like, oh, don't you have to be like, moving somewhat to go there? So we were kind of like, I don't want to say not hopeful, but we weren't expecting to go soon, They were all positive about it. So I kept having to like take that as like, okay, if they think it's, could potentially be soon, I guess you don't have to be like up and walking or, sitting up and moving, because he was doing none of that whatsoever. He was literally just able to move his eyeballs. And that was completely it. And then I think the day that they came in and told us, I felt like he got like accepted into like the biggest college. Like he was getting like this.
Yeah, that's my Harvard or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like it was the biggest moment that, I mean, we loved them. We did not want to leave them, but like we did, like, and I'll tell you what, I was scared. Oh, I was so scared just because they had been my everything. So, the whole focus was on him, but then I was just like, how can anybody else care for him like they did? How can anybody else be there for me like they were? Like, I was terrified, honestly, to leave Cardinal Glennon and not have them caring for him and consulting me. And I was really scared, but
but
it was
hopeful,
time.
like
I know,
you said,
but
that
hopeful,
he
but,
made
I
it
was
to
so
Harvard
scared.
and like
I know
that the accepting institution
Yes.
is like, yeah, we can work with this.
Yeah.
To
Yes.
your point, you were
Yes.
shocked, like, really?
I know. I was like,
okay.
he was moving his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If you guys
Yeah.
can work with that, great.
Okay, so we
Let's
get
go.
there. We're at Rankin, and you were there for close to a month
About 34 days.
ish. Okay, so and from Rankin we went home, correct?
Correct. We didn't even take a tour of it. We just,
Uh-huh.
that's where they recommended to go. Whatever they said is what we were going to do. We just trusted everything about, everything. And I mean, we were just, sure, well, that's where if that's where you want him to go, that's where we're going. And, you walk in and I don't know if y'all have been there. It's unreal. It's, it's an amazing facility. And, they had told us that the minimal expected time there was a year.
Really?
Mhm.
For
To be
his
at-
case.
To be there at least a year. So we had planned on being there for about they said, at least a year probably.
So
for him to
looking
go
at
home.
his situation,
Mhm.
all the background that all the Glennon people had
Mhm.
given him, they're like, okay, brace yourselves. You're going to be here for a year.
Yeah.
Expect it.
is what the expected time was.
Okay.
You prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Look at you.
So
Stud.
we're
okay.
kind of up to the timeline where I think when we had a previous conversation, you're probably starting to remember things from your journey. Can you start talking about now what you remember after being transferred to Rankin and where you are now, like currently, like today, with everything that's happened to you?
Yeah, I have to see pictures to like think of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one memory that is the strongest out of all of them is the one where it was me, Phoenix, I forgot who
Trent and
else.
Trey were
Yeah.
there. And
These friends from
some buddies
school?
were, came to
We were
see
all
him.
on the outdoor porch, and my dad or my grandpa had brought this guitar for me, and Phoenix started playing some songs because he's really good at guitar.
Awesome.
One of his buddies, yeah.
But yeah, that's the strongest memory I have.
So you were told that you were going to be at Rankin Jordan for a year, but you clearly proved them wrong and only stayed there for a little over 30 days. Tell us what that timeline looked like for you all with all of the therapies that you were having at Rankin Jordan, but then how you were followed once you were able to leave so quickly.
Yeah, so we left after 34 days, and we did continue. We went twice a week to Rankin for a short stretch, and then it went down to 1 day a week. We were finished with all of that. I think we went June, July, and then since he had started basketball right away, when we pretty much about 2 weeks after we got home.
2 weeks after you got home, you were back on the court?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are determined.
Yeah, so we had told them that because he was showing so much improvement through outpatient therapy, we had stopped speech. I don't know. I don't know if he was just kind of being a little stubborn and wouldn't talk. But once he figured out how to get that strength to talk, I think he was. He would get the staff kind of, come on, Brayden, like, and I think he thought it was funny. So, no, but they dropped speech, OT, everything just started trickling out like the month of June. And then come July, it was just more of the PT, and they, couldn't believe the amount of strength and coordination. And just, when you have a brain injury, it is literally, everything in your brain has to, any damaged areas, all those nerves have to like figure out how to overcompensate for things that weren't healed. And, and I get it why they said it was going to take a year, because there was a lot of healing that needed to go on. And it the process has to happen up here, and then it goes throughout the whole body. And, they were pretty amazed at how everything was, as you say, connecting the wires and moving through his body, and things were happening. And it was just the familiarizing him again with the basketball court and the ball and the coach and his buddies. And he was just showing great improvement. And we had told them that we were going to continue that, because August was rolling around, school was rolling around, and we were able to stop everything in August. So all therapies, everything, all of his meds were done in June. Like, he has inhalers that he has to take now.
Well, I had to take some before
he did have asthma before the accident, sports-induced asthma.
Yeah.
But that is he takes a maintenance inhaler 2 times a day, and then he has a inhaler that he takes through sports, but that is it. No, everything was done. His G-tube was removed. Yeah, that was wonderful. He was so skinny when he got that put in, and then it was, he's getting this 15-year-old appetite back, and he's really wanted to eat.
You
and
can
that
get those
G-tube was
finally.
all the chips he wanted. So yeah, we had a lot of, then the follow-up appointments got to start, back at Cardinal Glennon, and we were able to start seeing all of them again. And
that was a question I had too. Like, you have follow-ups. Like, it's not like we say goodbye and you go to Rankin and you never come to Cardinal Glennon again. So you're coming back. So it's the first follow-up appointment with who? Who are you supposed to see at Cardinal Glennon?
I feel, they were all wonderful, just to be able to reconnect with what we had called our heroes. We say like Cardinal Glennon, saves your life, and then you go to rehab and they give you life. It's kind of the way that, I feel like I've always kind of explained that to him. They saved your life, and then rehab, kind of gives you that life back. And so, I'm like, we get to go meet your heroes that like literally saved your life. And yeah, like the neurology, it was kind of like, bittersweet kind of thing. We love him and he was amazing. But you just hate to hear those words that come out of his mouth. So I was excited. To show him what Brayden has become, already. And I was just so
you're
proud.
sitting in the clinic room.
Yes, we're sitting in the clinic room and the neurologist opens the door and he said, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and closes the door to walk out. And Brayden goes, "Huh?" And he opens the door. I said Brayden or something. And then he opens the door and his eyes were huge and he was like, "Brayden Baer?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, he just stood there and he was like, just complete disbelief. And then he was standing there and he was just speechless. And he was like, "I showed you everything that I saw." And I said, "I know. You did. Yes, I know. And, he was just like so thankful. Like he just kept thanking Brayden, like, "Thank you."
Yeah, I remember I just kept saying you're welcome I know what reason.
He just kept saying thank you. And he said,
yeah.
"You know how I love to be proven wrong. Like, this is just thank you." Like, and Brayden's like, "Welcome." And then he said he's like, "Do you mind if I go and get, so-and-so another neurologist?" And he was like, he was, on that day as well. And I said, "Absolutely." And he went and got him. And he walks in and he's like, looks at him, looks at me, looks at, and he's like, "Are you in here to show off and bring," what'd you say?
I did that a lot. It was
he just goes, "A little bit." It was the coolest thing.
Even when I couldn't talk, I would just go like that.
A little bit. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. And that, that's what, after we left there, I'm like, "You know what, buddy? Like, yeah, maybe go on, your big dream, as a little kiddo, you just want to go and play professional sports everywhere. When you're an athlete, that is your dream. And, God just put something else in our path that, we're here to give y'all hope, give other kids hope, just teach them that, like, or, to encourage them to, like, not give up." I'm like, I think that's God's mission for you, is to just, be that person that, if it's not, talking to others, showing others, that's kind of, something he's always done as a human anyways. He's a, great advocate for others who have struggled in life, just with sports or, academically or whatever. So it took that, it raised it to a whole nother level to what he can do to help others.
Okay, so Mr. Neurologist gets to see this amazing miracle.
Mm-hmm.
We got these two heroes over here.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you get the privilege of seeing this young man walking and talking? Tell me about that.
Well, I think what ended up happening, I came out of our fishbowl where we all work, and Elaine and Brayden are standing there, and I was just like, who are you? Like, I
remember your face.
Yeah. I recognized Elaine, and I was like, "Hi." And then I was just like, I have no idea who this person is talking to me, standing here. There's no trach. And he's like, "Yeah, hi." And I was just like flabbergasted. I was like, I have no idea. I had no idea that he had come this far. When he left the ICU, we didn't know if he would do any of this. And so he's walking and he's talking, and he remembers, not necessarily the ICU, but he remembers, like, the situation, I guess. I was like, he's there, and it's shocking. I was shocked.
I would be in a puddle of tears. I would literally fall down. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that has to be everything.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
When you have that job of delivering that awful, awful news, and then to be, like you said, proven wrong,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Well, I feel like today's conversation, and this is kind of why we wanted to do this, because I feel like we could talk about what's the PICU and what kind of work do we do, and we could talk about all kinds of life-saving things all day, but this is the reality that goes on every day. And this is the, like, crazy balance that you have as a mom, balancing what is realistic hope, what is my gut telling me, this is you all, and probability, but there's also possibility, and tempering that, as you do family to family to family, day in and day out. And I think it's a reminder that hope doesn't have to disappear when things are ridiculous hard. They can kind of coexist in the same space. And to tell the truth, that doesn't mean you have to take hope away, right? The two can exist at one time. So, and, as we've talked about, every ICU story can end differently, and many don't end like this. But I think the shared theme is that, hope and heartbreak and all the things, they don't have to cancel each other out. They can live in the same space kind of side by side. So I just want to thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing this. It's hard, I would assume, to kind of go back and relive a lot of that. So we appreciate that you trust us to go there, and appreciate you guys for taking time out of saving lives, literally, and being the anchors for people and being here and having this conversation with us. So
thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Glennon Factor. Make sure you follow The Glennon Factor and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Visit glennon.org if you would like to learn more about how you can support Cardinal Glennon kids. And while you're there, feel free to share any feedback or episode suggestions on our podcast page. The Glennon Factor is recorded and produced by SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Foundation.